Hi there, this is Audrey, and this is a talk on distress tolerance. So, first of all, what is distress tolerance? It's actually a core part of DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy. I ran DBT groups for several years at a community clinic, and I loved running that group. It was a lot of fun, but it was also it was a real growing process, I think, for the people in the group and for myself as well. But most of the people that do DBT are usually referred because of a history of self-harm and suicidal thoughts. But having said that, I just want to be very clear that anyone can use distress tolerance skills. The purpose of distress tolerance is to recognize when we have urges to do things that we know are ineffective. And that's not just cutting or feeling suicidal, but any kind of thing that you might consider to be ineffective. I think for a lot of people right now, it's just low motivation and perhaps also spiraling into kind of negative thought patterns and then not getting anything done and feeling worse because you're getting less done. So the whole purpose of distress tolerance is to consciously control urges to kind of spiral and try and do something productive instead and to self-soothe. So self-soothing, to be, very elementary about it, when babies suck their thumbs, that's self-soothing. So for adults, we do other things to self-soothe, and that's basically what distress tolerance is about. So you could use these skills if you have anxiety or depression. You don't have to have a history of anxiety or depression to use the skills because right now a lot of people are probably experiencing increased anxiety and perhaps depression. So part of it is also just identifying things that you do anyway and just making a conscious note of what those things are. So that's like pleasant daily activities. And then also it's about developing coping skills and things that you can use. So specifically by the end of this PowerPoint, I want you to have a sense of what a distraction and a relaxation plan are. But to start off, say that you are not okay. I think that was the best way I could think of it. I didn't want to use the word trigger. Just say you're having a day where you're just not feeling great. First of all, it's okay to not be okay. I think a lot of people are experiencing feelings they may never have experienced before, and that's okay. So, for instance, you might feel sad, you might be triggered by a specific event, you might be troubled by the news, in which case I might urge you to not engage with the news. You might be feeling overwhelmed by everything with the pandemic and not knowing the timeline, being stuck in your house. You might be bored. A lot of people are probably bored. You might be stressed out or anxious or annoyed by others because your life might be very, encapsulated right now between you and whoever's in your household. So the first thing to do is just to identify enjoyable activities. A lot of these things are things you might already do, but just to identify them. And by identify them, I mean write a list. And write a list either in a notepad, on a note card. When I did this in groups, we used to write them on note cards. You can also write it on your phone in your notes, on a pad of paper, but just list enjoyable activities. These are some examples. Talking to a friend, exercising of any sort, jog, walk, yoga, taking a nap can be enjoyable. I do that on the weekends. Eat a sweet, do a puzzle or a game on your phone or in person. You can play a game with someone or by yourself. You could blog or journal, microjournaling. I have a whole thing on that. Listen to some music, watch a funny movie or just a YouTube clip. Cook some food that you like. I've been cooking a lot. I think a lot of people are cooking a lot. Play with a pet if you have one. Meditate. ASMR is kind of a weird thing, but you can Google it if you're into it. Take a bath, write a letter, draw or paint, write a short story, watch nature videos, which can be kind of a fun break. So just identify enjoyable activities. The other thing you can do is just take a break when you're feeling overwhelmed. A lot of people, myself included, who are working from home, it can feel a little monotonous. So if you have an 8-hour workday, or even if you have, mine's about a 6-hour workday, I take breaks. A lot of times I take a coffee break. I actually do dance sometimes, usually with my kids. I'll just blast some fun music and dance. Call someone if you have time. Watch the clouds. Today it's just super cloudy, period. Stretch. Stretching is great. If you even can just do a little of this. Your neck stretch. Do you hear that cracking? Oh my God. Oh, wow. Yeah. And even do a little yoga if you can. A guided meditation on your phone. There's all kinds of free guided meditations, or you can pay a couple bucks for one. Look at some art online or in a book. Watch a funny video. I said color with crayons, color with anything you got. Read a poem, write a letter, take 20 deep breaths, like count your breaths. Doesn't have to be 20, it could be 10, whatever you have time for. Walk around the block. That can be really nice just to get your blood flowing again if you're sitting in a chair too much. Eat a snack, sing a song. And I said ask for a quarantine hug. So sometimes I just ask the people in my house for a hug just because, you need a hug sometimes when you're feeling a little, ugh. So, next, I want to talk about how to make a distraction plan. So, this is a little bit more structured. So, you want to come up with 10 things that would distract yourself from something that's bothering you. So, these are just some examples. And what I'd like is if you think about things more specific than what I'm asking. So, do something for someone else. Well, try and be more specific. What would you do? If there's something you can do for someone else in your household or for a neighbor, you could write that down. A lot of people are writing letters to healthcare workers. That's something you can do. Um, think of someone you care about or write them a letter. Remember pleasant activities from the past. I think right now a lot of us are very nostalgic for the past because we're thinking about, oh, life before the pandemic when we could actually be in the same place as other people. That's okay to think about that as a distraction if you're feeling overwhelmed. Fantasize or imagine. Totally fine to imagine yourself in any scenario you want. The safe place exercise, we do this in counseling sometimes where you kind of think of a specific safe place in your life. I think I talked about this in a different video. Mine is a lake and where I grew up that is really beautiful and calming. So I always go to that lake and I kind of envision myself over that lake. You could your safe place could be, an ocean. It could be a mountain. It's up to you. But doing a safe place can be very distracting and a nice way to kind of escape reality for a minute. Favorite poem or prayer? I would love to share with you my favorite poem, but I don't think I have it with me right now. But it's called Let It Go by Dana Falds, and it's really good. And so that's a poem that I read sometimes when I'm feeling overwhelmed. Observe the natural world, as in go outside and like it's spring, the flowers are budding, which is quite kind of nice. If you can't do that, then go online and observe nature. There's plenty of nature videos online. And then this is the one I probably do the most, to be honest, tip for distraction. I do tasks and chores. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, what you can do is force yourself to do stuff that needs to get done anyway, but do it quite intentionally. So like clean your room, redecorate, organize your closet or your desktop. My desktop's always really cluttery. Um, do your laundry, water plants if you have any, cook something, wash the dishes. Basically, just do the stuff that you probably have to do anyway, but do it very intentionally as a way of distracting yourself from feeling overwhelmed. Do your homework or whatever work you have. In my case, I always have paperwork I have to do. So, forcing yourself to do tasks sometimes is a good way to distract. Online support groups, there used to be in-person support groups, now they're all online, but there are plenty of them. So you look into it. If you need support from some group of people, there's tons of Zoom groups now, people getting together, or create a Zoom group with your friends. I have two that I do weekly, one on Tuesday nights and one on Friday, like early evening. And those are, I count on those. Count your breaths, speaking of counting. Um, you can count your breaths in any way. I talked before about the 4-7-8 exercise, but you can just count in and out. You can count numbers. I remember when I was a kid, I used to count like cars and telephone poles. You can do simple math where you add numbers, sevens, fives, whatever floats your boat. That can be very distracting. Naming objects. So one thing you can do when you're really like overwhelmed and triggered is just start naming things in the room. So like lamp, cup, window, bird, like just, it's not a real bird. But anyway, you just name things. That's one way of kind of distracting yourself. Another thing is grounding, and that's where you get back in your body. So like grounding is like, oh, here I am. Here's my hands. Where's the chair? Put your feet on the floor. That's grounding. So those are some examples of grounding, or excuse me, of distraction. And here is a distraction plan. I actually got this from one of my old clients who wrote it down in a book. And I will say that this book, which is kind of I call it the Diet DBT book, Dialectical Behavioral Therapy Workbook, is a great book. And if you're into this stuff, I recommend getting it. It's not very expensive. And this was her distraction plan right here. So I wrote it down for you guys. She said she would exercise, clean and redecorate, listen to music, go outside, call her mom, or you can call a friend, do homework, take a shower, watch TV or a movie, think of past events, and count her breaths. So that was her distraction plan. And she wrote it down on like a post-it piece of paper thing and kept it with her. And you can either take a picture of it on your phone or write it on your phone so you have it. And then next, after distracting, we're supposed to relax. Because once you're distracted, then you might be able to take it down another notch. So what we talk about is relaxing using your five senses. So first is the sense of smell. You could light a candle, essential oils, perfume if you're into that, just the smell of food that you like, or flowers, anything where there's a nice, pleasant smell. Sense of vision, looking at magazines, books, going, nature or a walk. Again, you can do that on person or online. Draw or paint a picture, looking at old photographs, going on the internet and just doing images on Google. You can find all kinds of images. You can put anything in and find images. Sense of hearing, listening to music, a book on tape, your favorite podcast or any podcast. There's so many good ones. TV, radio, white noise, nature sounds, relaxation videos, guided meditation. And I put Bob Ross because it's actually in the book where they talk about how some people watch Bob Ross and it makes them fall asleep. Bob Ross, I think, is on Netflix. And if you want to just get a laugh, I would go watch some old Bob Ross videos. Sense of taste, enjoying a favorite meal. If you like candy or gum, I chew gum a lot. I actually have breath mints here those, lifesavers, I chew on those. Chocolate, ice cream, drinking something soothing. For me, it's always tea or coffee, usually. Sucking on an ice cube, people like that, or fresh fruit. And sense of touch, of course, is just something tactile. So like touching something soft, or any kind of soothing, some people have like a stress ball kind of thing. I don't have one here. Take a hot shower or a bath. Give yourself a massage or trade a massage with someone you live with. If you have a pet, play with it. Wear comfortable clothes. That's a good one now that we're all at home. And so here is an example of a relaxation plan. So there's 10 of these. So I just chose some ones. Actually, this again, I think was my old client. So scent, she said she wanted to burn candles. To move, she was going to go on a walk. Music, listen to chill music. White noise. Eat a home-cooked meal. She said she'd drink some tea, chew on ice cubes. Some people love chewing on ice cubes. Take a hot bath or shower, wear comfy clothes, or listen to a podcast. So again, even though I didn't number these, there's 10 of them. So you want to try and identify 10 things that you can do when you're overwhelmed. And again, the first thing you do is distract yourself from whatever is triggering you or whatever is making you upset and overwhelmed. And then the next thing you do is relax. And that really just brings us to the whole point of the thing. I guess I'll put this up here so I don't get lost. Is stop, drop, and roll, but for counseling. It's distract, relax, and cope. So when you do feel triggered, and again, if triggered's not the right word, I think during the pandemic, a better word might be overwhelmed. When you're feeling particularly overwhelmed, just try and distract yourself. And do it with the tasks or the chores or cleaning or podcasts or books on tape, anything where you can take your attention off of why you're feeling overwhelmed and put your attention onto something else. And then once you are fully distracted and you calm down a little bit, that is when you should try and relax further when you have a chance. And that's when you got to use the five senses, whether it's taking a bath or doing anything that like chills you down even more. And then once you're distracted from whatever's overwhelming you or the trigger and you're able to relax, you're coping. And that's pretty much the name of the game in counseling. So I hope that you enjoyed this presentation. I just want to review a couple things. Again, try and identify what is an enjoyable activity for yourself. Write them down. I've written down just some examples. So if you were to do this plan thing, you would write down enjoyable activities for yourself and or ways that you can take a break when you're feeling overwhelmed. And then you want to identify 10 ways to distract yourself and 10 ways that you can relax. And then distract, relax, and cope. So thanks a lot for listening to this. I hope it makes sense. If you're into DBT, if this seems like something you want to know more about, get this book or look up DBT, or I'm sure there's some DBT online groups right about now. Okay, thanks.